Hello, my name's Tony Kingham. I'm editor of Border Security Report magazine, and today I'm talking to Kevin Davies, who is Global Director, Ports and Borders at Smiths Detection, discussing remote analysis and data sharing. Hello, Kevin, and welcome.
Hello, good morning, Tony, and thank you for the intro.
Okay, no problem. Can you tell me briefly about your background and experience in the security business?
Gosh, okay, so in my early career, I was in the British military and the British Army, where I completed my service in 2003 as an engineer and officer. After that, I came out of the armed forces, working as a contractor for SAIC, who is now a company called Leidos, delivering non-intrusive inspection systems for UK customs. That was a project I ran as a project manager in the UK. In late 2003, I was offered a position in Kuwait to start a BOT on behalf of the government of Kuwait, running non-intrusive inspection services under a concession contract for a company called IVACIS in Kuwait. So we deployed, again, non-intrusive inspection equipment using SAIC and Rapiscan systems at the border of Kuwait. Also deployed camera systems and other security equipment at the airports and the ports in Kuwait.
I think that's back when we first met, wasn't it?
I think it was, yeah. And that was really, you know, one of the first sort of BOT or BOT concession contracts within this sort of business area. In late 2004, early 2005, I took up a position in Rapiscan system and moved back to the UK, where I was the EMEA technical director. I stayed with Rapiscan for around 2 years. In 2007 ish, I moved to Mozambique, again to join a company called Kadumba, who had recently won a concession contract for the 20-year concession contract for the government of Mozambique, again to deploy non-intrusive inspection systems at the land, air and sea borders of the country. So we deployed various vendors' equipment across all of the borders there, across all modalities of transportation, from the seaports, rail ports, and the land border crossings. In 2013, I was fortunate enough to be offered a position in Smiths Detection. So I left Mozambique. The concession contract in Mozambique by Kadumba is still running, by the way, and running very successfully. It was a startup company I took from really having 0 people to employing over 450 and being an ISO 9000 accredited company. So I left them in 2013 in very capable hands. And as I say, the concession is still running, and I was fortunate enough to be offered a position in Smiths Detection, which I took up in the programs team in Vitry, which is, as you'll be aware, is our high energy center of excellence on the outskirts of Paris. So I was in the programs team there, delivering several major successful programs, mainly on our high energy product range. So there's a concession, there's a successful program in Azerbaijan, where I think to date we've delivered maybe 13 high energy systems in Azerbaijan. This was back in 2013-14, where we delivered some gantry systems, 8 of them, and also 2 high energy rail systems. I also delivered a program in South America, in El Salvador, and it's very applicable to the conversation we're having today. The program in El Salvador was to deploy 8 high energy systems and to link them with a centralized screening facility in San Salvador, which is the capital. That's our database dataset management system, which essentially is our remote screening capability that we've successfully deployed there in El Salvador.
Okay.
So that, that was the highlights of the programs. I then in 2014 and end of 2014 moved out to Dubai, where I became the head of EMEA programs. And then in 2019, after some internal restructuring in the business, we split the business into essentially 4 verticals: aviation, defense, urban security, and of course, ports and borders. So I'm now in the position where I run ports and borders for Smiths Detection.
Okay, fantastic. Right, that was a nice segue to data analysis. So can you tell me what the benefits are of remote analysis and data sharing?
Okay, so first of all, to understand the benefits, I think we really need to understand the challenges. Essentially, although not exclusively, a lot of our product line on that, the cargo vehicle inspection systems, the high energy systems, are used by customs authorities around the world, but they're also used by, of course, border police and other regulatory authorities, as well as private companies. But one of the challenges that these organizations have is that they generally run these systems on a site-by-site basis, and particularly where they're used by government departments such as customs, then there's a requirement for them to actually interact with their colleagues in other border points and, increasingly in other countries around the world. So the importance of being able to interact remotely, and share data, not only between the same country agencies or colleagues, but also internationally with other entities, is becoming increasingly a demand. In order to do that, obviously, then that data sharing, and in particular, where we're concerned, the data that we capture, not just the image, but the metadata around it, is extremely important to ensure that the stream of commerce, both at that point and also throughout the supply chain, is viewed correctly, whether it be for anomaly identification or whether it be for security purposes. Yeah. I'm not sure if I answered completely your question there, Tony, but I'm sure you'll put me wrong if put me right if I didn't.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that comes from that is there a benefit? A benefit? This is really a question, in that if they're sharing this data internationally, so container A has been scanned in Mozambique, for instance. They share that data internationally with the because obviously they can't scan everything, so they can assume that container A is safe at the port of arrival, and therefore they can scan container B. So it reduces the number of times that a container potentially has to be scanned. Is that what?
Yeah, it's a fair assessment, and I think it's important for you and of course our audience to understand that, of course, non-intrusive inspection using high energy systems is only one of the tools that these government agencies, whether they be customs or whatever, have. And by connecting these systems, homogeneously from the point of origin, obviously it has a lot of benefits for that host country, in that it gets them to utilize resources much more efficiently. It can improved operational performance, maybe a reduction in the infrastructure that's required, but then collecting that data into a central location and then being able to share it with the point of arrival in the next country or the next point of that supply chain, as you say, will aid that particular country's inspection process. And as you say, it may be deemed necessary that because container, X has been scanned in country A, then it doesn't need to be scanned in that country, and it can just pass through that particular country's risk assessment process seamlessly. Because ultimately, what we want to do is ensure that that stream of commerce is unhindered. But at the same time, we want to be able to guarantee the integrity of the commodities that are within that container based on the norms of that international trade requirement.
Okay, thank you. Right. Well, so how do you go about establishing a remote analysis system?
Essentially, we really need to sort of partner with the potential customer. We would want to perhaps initially do an audit of their operations on their site to fully understand exactly what their requirements are. We often find, in a lot of countries that the host country will see that, obviously that the WCO or organizations such as them are mandating the use of non-intrusive inspection, and therefore they just feel as if they need to put it in place. I think, it's really important to understand exactly what they're trying to achieve with that non-intrusive inspection aspect, and the degree, do they want to screen 100% using non-intrusive inspection? Do they want to marry it up to a risk management process that they already have and just screen part of it? Do they have the physical space? Do they understand what the constraints are around the system, in particular the radiation protection requirements when we deploy our X-ray systems? Do they have the necessary resources in terms of officers to man these systems? Or, and if they do, can we set up, and in particular, one of the important things, particularly for centralized screening, is that, do they have the correct ICT backbone to enable the connectivity of this, so as we can then guide them on the requirements in terms of the data storage and how they want to run their ConOps. So there's a lot of consultation goes on with the customer to fully understand their requirements and needs, and then we would then take from that and build a solution to go back to them and deliver the best solution that meets their needs, Tony.
Okay. So what's the role of data in trend spotting?
Okay. When I saw this question, I thought, what do we really want here? I'd probably start by saying that, the expectations from people these days is that we have data instantly available. We all have our cell phones. We're talking via Zoom today. The capabilities and expectations of IT are almost taken by granted by us, and that's no different for procurement officers and countries when they procure these non-intrusive inspection systems and services. They assume that they're going to get the clarity of the image that they would view on their PC when they're viewing a 40-foot container in front of them. They expect the artificial intelligence, machine learning capabilities to be able to deliver results instantaneously. So managing the expectations around those particular capabilities is important. In terms of what's the role of that data, well, obviously, as well as managing them expectations, I think it's important for us as well to recognize that, the capabilities of computing power has moved on. And, especially artificial intelligence and our product line, I See More, is the name of our artificial intelligence product line, where we can implement machine learning capabilities on our systems to allow the customers to have an assured probability of detection. Okay, now, again, much like where we would sort of advise the customer on setting up a solution in the first place, when we're deploying artificial intelligence and machine learning on our systems, it's important and to recognize that a lot of these individual points of entry, whether they be a port, land border, critical infrastructure or whatever, do have particular streams of commerce that cross that point. And therefore, the use of AI and machine learning particularly enhances the ability to ensure that the operator, and that operator may be human or it may be the computer, can make that informed decision to ensure that the inspection of that commodity is done correctly. So
if you've got a port that it has a particular trend, maybe the cocaine smuggling is a particular issue, then the scans can spot trends in how the drugs are smuggled. Perhaps I'm just sort of riffing here.
Yeah, no, you're without being specific for obvious reasons, Tony. Yeah. I think you're very. If there's a particular, there may be in a particular port, they may be concerned about bananas imports coming from South America, where narcotics are consistently being found, and it might be that they're trending in the reefer elements of the reefer containers that perhaps they're transported in. So obviously, it's very easy, quick, and reliable for AI and machine learning to spot and identify those particular kinds of trends. So that's the advantage of computing power, that it can actually do the maths and the inspection on those regular items a lot quicker than we can as humans. So yeah, trending of the manipulation of data is where we're seeing great advancements in our industry.
So potentially, for instance, you could be users could be sharing that information with the WCO, Interpol, Europol, and we can start to plot global trends and spot global weaknesses in the supply chain, and so on. Is that a fair assessment?
It is a fair assessment, and I think it's also important for you, Tony, and for the audience, to whoever's listening or reading, that the data that is output from our systems obviously doesn't belong to us as the manufacturer of the equipment. It belongs to, the customs authority, perhaps, that's using that equipment. So therefore, while we can manipulate and we can sort that metadata on their behalf, the actual data belongs to them, and the use of that data is actually under their control. And we've got very strict protocols and cybersecurity arrangements in place to ensure, and for obvious reasons, it's not really advisable for us as a manufacturer to be able to have that information either. So although we work with our customers to ensure that integrity of that information, and we have a duty, obviously, to each of our clients separately, which we rigorously maintain, by the way, to ensure that that data is maintained secure for them. And that's whether it's held on a local server on the machine, whether it's on a cloud, or whether it's on a private cloud or public cloud. The cybersecurity requirements are increasingly important for them and for us.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, Kevin, well, thank you for talking to me today.
It's been great catching up with you after all this time, and no matter what, we'll see each other soon, I'm sure.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, thank you, and goodbye.